What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is Ari in the Air. Stoked you're here. Hope you're getting fired up for a big flying season 2021. So I've got some observations that I've made in the flying community at large over the last 7 or 8 years as I've been paragliding around the world. And today I've got the 5 worst paragliding habits that you should either never develop or break immediately. You want to know what they are? Here we go.
See ya.
Okay, guys. So, like I said, I've got 5 terrible paragliding habits for you and also a couple little extras. I think I've got some extras to throw in here. If you like this channel, consider subscribing, becoming a Patreon patron, and donating at paypal.me/Ari in the Air. I really appreciate that. So, the first thing that I see that's the worst paragliding habit, and this is just kind of like, I could almost say this is the way I know you're about to blow it, is if you hold your brake toggle like this. I call it holding your brake toggle like a base jumper. And it's when you hold on to the brake toggle like this. Base jumpers hold on to their brake toggles like this, but a base canopy is so dumb and easy to fly. It's just crazy stable. They're just designed to open and save your life and get you to the ground. A paraglider is much more delicate and wants to communicate with you a lot more than a base canopy. So holding your toggle like this, like a base jumper, is no longer acceptable. This is also how PPG pilots hold their brake toggles very often. But remember, a paramotor pilot is flying in the morning and the evening when there's really not much in the air to feel. So this is a really, you can see as I hold, I just have so much play. I have so much play in the brake like this, and it really disconnects me from the wing. So the proper way to hold the brake, and I don't want to go into this at too much depth, the proper way to hold the brake is essentially any way that you connect directly with the brake line itself. So I don't care if you grab above this. The best way to hold your brake, the way that I hold my brake all the time, acro, cross country, is a half wrap. Grab the bottom of the brake, half wrap up. There, that's a half wrap. See how much line tension I have? It actually shortens the brake by like 3 inches. It gives you a lot of pressure and authority. So this is how you want to hold your brake 99% of the time. This way, through with your hand through, is better than holding onto the bottom, but pilots have, in emergency situations, had their hand get stuck and not be able to throw their reserve, so I kind of advise you to stay away from that one a little bit. But yeah, grab the bottom of the brake, turn it into a half wrap. Don't fly like this. I've warned people to not fly like this because you can't feel the glider. You're also, when you fly, your hand is really low, and it means that you're using your tricep to push the brake down. Your tricep is very strong, and I literally warned a close friend of mine not to do that. One day, the very next day, he spun his glider low, crashed, broke his back. We did a helicopter rescue of him. So, for a lot of reasons, use a half wrap. Don't build the habit of holding onto the brake like this. You can't get a proper flare. You just can't get a full flare. You get a half wrap, now you have 5 more inches of brake travel. A full flare is gonna be way easier, okay? So don't hold your brake like a base jumper, that's number 1. Number 2, it's simple. It's wearing a GoPro on your head. Stop wearing a GoPro on your head. Why? In skydiving, I learned to skydive before I learned to paraglide, and in skydiving, you actually have to have a B license to jump a camera. And there's a saying that GoPros and girlfriends kill skydivers. And that's essentially because if you're trying to show off to someone, or if you're trying to record something cool, you're gonna get braver than you should be. You're gonna do something stupid, right? That doesn't even begin to talk about the enormous line entanglement issue that a GoPro on your forehead is, okay? So that's not to say I've never flown with a GoPro on my forehead, but for all you beginners, please, if you don't care about your soaring footage anyways, and the only reason that you want a GoPro on your head is so that we can analyze your crash footage anyways. So just take the GoPro off of your head you're less likely to have crash footage, you won't get it tangled, and in general, it's a bad habit to be in, okay? That's number 2. Number 3 is inflating your glider when you're not attached to it. Like I said, this is just a bad habit. It's not something that you can never do, but if you watch some of my previous videos, I explain how I watched a person die doing this, and I've also seen people lose their gliders because of this, because the glider gets inflated and picked up and they let go and it just tangles and gets stuck into the weeds. There's just better ways to do it. If you can't hook your glider in correctly without inflating it when you're not connected to it, then you're probably doing something wrong. That's number 3. Number 4 is holding on to your risers while you fly. If you watch videos of Kriegel, he actually kind of follows his risers more than you think, but he never grabs onto them. And I see people kind of they'll launch and they'll grab onto their risers, or for whatever reason they grab their risers. In general, don't grab onto your risers. The more you can just feel the brake pressure, you can follow the risers, but grabbing them's a bad habit. Number 5, and this one I just can't believe I see so much of this. And I see it in such high-level pilots all over the world. And honestly, I'm surprised that more people don't die doing this. Number 5 is letting go of the brakes off of launch. You launch your glider, you want to get into your pod really quick, and so immediately you're in midday thermic conditions, you're 40 feet off the ground, and you let go of your brakes to deal with your pod. It's just the worst idea ever. You're low, you're in thermic conditions, and you just started flying, meaning that you have no sense of the air mass for the day, and now you're gonna let go of the brakes. It really doesn't matter how much experience you have. I have a friend, Max Marion, he's one of the best American acro pilots and set the world record for infinity tumbling, and he had a brake wrap, let go of it low to fix it right off of launch, took a whack right in the wrong moment, swung under, broke his back. It's just something you really, before you let go of the glider, you gotta fly away, you gotta have terrain clearance, you have to think of what could happen if you take a collapse. You have to be ready to pull on the brakes. And if you don't have the brakes in your hand, it's really hard to pull them. You're not gonna bite it. You're not gonna get your foot into it. You need your hands on the brakes when you're low to the ground. That seems so obvious, but it's crazy how much we see of this. There are videos on YouTube of people dying because they launch, they let go of their brakes, take a full frontal, and crash into the ground. Please don't do that. Fly away from the hill. This also goes into being prepared to fly. A lot of people don't simulate their harness well enough, so they actually don't get into it very comfortably. Especially if you're flying a pod harness, you need to either know how to do a really good torpedo position and keep your ass high. That's what brings your pod under your feet so your heel can hook it and you can get into your pod easily. Otherwise, you need to take a bungee, tie it to your pod, and tie it to your shoelaces so that your pod will follow one foot. You can put one foot out, you put the other foot in the pod, and you're into the pod. But at any rate, this also goes for open harnesses too. I see a lot of people, students or not, they'll launch their glider and immediately grab onto the risers, which effectively takes away all their feel for the glider and stops their ability to pull on the brakes, and they start scooting, trying to get into their harness immediately. It's not that you shouldn't ever get into your harness, but you need to fly away from the hill first. Have some patience. Count a solid 3 count, maybe a 5 count. It depends on how steep the hill is, right? Fly away from the hill. And sometimes I even recommend people to let go of the brakes entirely. A lot of people will try to put 2 brakes in one hand, but when you lean over to deal with your pod, you actually weight shift and you pull the inside brake and you make a big diving turn with the glider. It's better if you're not super familiar flying like a tandem pilot with one hand on 2 brakes, just let go of the brakes. You'll do less harm, right? If you're not really good at that, you'll do more harm than good trying. So fly away from the hill until you're comfortable letting go of the glider entirely. Get into your pod, get into your harness, whatever the deal is, all right? Those are my 5 tips. I got a couple little lightning round extras for you. You ready? Don't ever have your harness on without your leg loops on. If you're gonna put it on, put it on. And if it's gonna be off, let it be off. But the middle stuff and forgetting and launching without your leg loops on, or some kind of rigging malfunction on your harness has killed pilots in the past. So that's a quick one. Sitting down too early or jumping into your harness is also a terrible thing. Fly your glider off of the hill smoothly in a nice torpedo position. Fly it off of the hill, right? And then the final one is kind of a social one. Don't get in the habit of pretending that you know and showing up to a new launch and not asking questions and feeling like you have to exclude yourself. And I know it's a tough one, and this is kind of social, and this goes into the culture of paragliding and our whole history on Earth and in our families and our relationships and everything. But in general, we need to get into the habit of asking for help, being good stewards at our sites, and helping people, and being able to give a good site intro and being able to receive a site intro. All these things are super important. So I hope this video helps. If you have any other bad paragliding habits that you've observed that I need to make a video about, put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these. Also, please subscribe, share this with your pilot friends. Consider donating on paypal.me/Ari in the air and become a patron on Patreon. Okay? This shit takes up all my time. I need your help. Come on, let's get this going. I've got some new t-shirts. I've got buffs coming out. It's going to be great. Get involved. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next episode.